And I think we are at a very trying point in American history for not just what's going on here at the federal level, given that kind of has its like domino effects, across the nation. But I do want to kind of segue this into the LA riots as well, because I think that's, again, a very, I don't know, maybe the best descriptor, but it's a sign of, turmoil within this country that is going unchecked by and large, and has gone unchecked for, many decades. And again, are we going to be able to get through this, better off as a country together, or is this going to separate us for quite some time, if not in perpetuity? And then, hey, see you, China, and we fall as a global power. Because that to me is where it feels like we're heading to some degree. And I hate to not be like the super optimistic.
No, I mean, life isn't all about, all
what you want
it
to be.
Yeah,
right.
You got to deal with a lot of bad stuff, right? But I saw an interesting.
I feel like we need to clarify the 2025 LA riots.
Yes, 2025.
Yeah. Saw an interview last night, and the interviewee was talking about, if you think this goes back to the Trump-Musk feud, quote unquote.
Yeah.
If you think that was worrisome or troublesome or really a downslide for the country, let's go back to the Jefferson-Adams feud.
Yep.
If you really want to see two titans, clash of the titans.
Real vitriol.
Yeah.
Didn't talk to each other for like decades, I think. Yeah.
And, talk about in Clash of the Titans, I mean, these are the two founders of this country, or two of the primary top 10 people that
definitely founding fathers
had the vision
sure.
of the country. So this thing, I'm not really concerned about I'm going back to the Trump-Musk thing. I'm not as concerned that that's as big of a deal.
Yep.
I just wish it could be handled in a different way. And here's the last comment from me on this. Often I wonder if this was, and I've seen somebody actually post something to this, if this is planned out, because Trump likes screwing with the media. We've talked about this before.
Elon Musk likes attention.
Whether it's invading Greenland or invading Canada to make Canada the 51st
his third
state,
term,
whatever, his third term. Which, if you want to talk about that at some point, I'd love to, because I am not in favor of that. I've said it before. I'm saying it real quick. I'm not going to vote for Trump for a third term, and I also am not going to vote for Don Jr. or Eric or Ivanka. Is that her name? Yeah,
Ivanka.
Ivanka's his daughter. I don't want these family dynasties involved. I mean, we don't need any more Kennedys. We don't need any more Reagans. We don't need any more Bushes. We don't need any more Trumps. That's my opinion. But
yeah, I know. I definitely feel different, like about the Kennedy situation.
Hey, I'll make $100 bet with you right now. I bet you $100.
I'll pass.
At the end of his term here, if he's not running for a third term, one of his kids will, and they'll be the greatest thing since sliced bread. I got $100 on the table right now for anybody. Brian, you, if y'all want to bet.
And no, you're just saying the bet is him or one of his kin will run.
That's right.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if one of them ran, but I don't think it will happen. Now, I do think J.D. Vance is more likely than not going to run. I think he probably has as good of a position as any. I think as much as he would like to kid himself in thinking he has a chance, Gavin Newsom, I think, is going to probably throw his hat in the ring, and we'll see how well he fares.
What about Kamala Harris?
I've heard that she would be like put back in the mix, but I just don't see how she could fare any better than she did last time.
AOC
Bernie,
Yep.
I think his time has passed. If he was 10, 15 years younger.
How old's Bernie Sanders now? He's in his 80s, right?
That's a good question.
And if Gavin Newsom has any chance of becoming president,
83.
sad.
Yeah, you're right. Bernie's over the hill.
Yeah.
So the new squad, or the new blood coming in, is AOC and
David Hogg.
Yeah, there's some.
I would love to see if Dean Phillips could get more of a platform. I only listened to him a couple times leading up to the 2024 election, but he was ousted by the Democratic Party, even though he was elected. I forget if he was senator or congressman, but in Texas, had a fairly successful business career. I mean, I think maybe at least one, if not a couple, like $10+ million businesses that he's like built and either sold off or continued to operate. And I think one of those was an ice cream business, and just a very like competent guy, right? And a man of himself, you know, like, hey, he might have a lot of ideals that line up with other people within the Democratic Party, but newsflash, there's a lot of those ideals that are also aligned with people of the Republican Party or any walk of life, right? But he was ousted because he was not just above and beyond his own, you know, stances, willing to represent those of like the Democratic Party elite. So much like Robert Kennedy Jr. was not able to actually run in the primaries against Joe Biden back when Joe Biden was still the front runner for the party. So, yeah, that's the thing. Like, the Democratic Party really needs to open up their doors, but that's going to expose them to ideals that they don't necessarily want to represent, or like the heads of the party want to represent. And that's what happened to the Republican Party, that it wasn't, hey, this is now Trump is a Republican and aligns with all the traditional Republican ideals. It's just that's the party that had an opening for him to run in the primaries. And again, going back to 2016, the Clintons, specifically Hillary, was a big donor of Trump's campaign because, hey, he's going to be the easiest candidate to beat because he's a fucking joke, right?
Yeah.
And then what did he do? He literally went and dismantled the Republican Party.
Yeah, he did.
He literally made a mockery of, you know, the Bushes, right? You know, Slow Jeb, you know, and Little Marco and Lying Ted, right? And it's like people forget about this, yet this was, you know, less than 10 years ago at this point, you know?
When you look at what Trump has done, he has made history. When you like I said, when you become the president of the United States, you make history books, right? How many books on Warren Harding, for example, are there? There's going to be there will be more books written about Donald Trump, as many as Abraham Lincoln. I'm willing to bet you. Ronald Reagan,
probably
Abraham.
more. Yeah. Do you know Penn from Penn and Teller, like Penn Jillette? He was on a podcast here in the last week or two and talking about some of his experiences with Trump, you know, throughout like his earlier career, because Penn was on The Celebrity Apprentice, and you know, he kind of got along with
Trump. When he was younger?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he was already like a known entity, you know, part of Penn and Teller.
He's the big guy.
Yeah, he's the big, yeah. And apparently he made a comment to Trump about being taller than him and having a lot of money or something like that. And Trump didn't take too kindly to that. And in some interview, he was mentioning like his least favorite people, and Penn Jillette was, you know, and, you know, Penn Jillette made a comment about like, and we shouldn't have presidents that worry about some, you know, magician comedian. And it's like, don't you actually want the president to care about, you know, the people of America, Americans, even the entertainers, the comedians, you know, the magicians? And he had, and that was like actually like Trump caring about him in some degree beyond just like kind of making a remark about like not being one of his favorite people or whatever. But what were you saying that I was trying to wrap this back to about Donald Trump making history? I think it was just like about the characterization that people have of Trump, yet oftentimes they'll attack him with the same in the same way that they accuse him of attacking others. And I forget the exact case I was going to pull from that interview, but it really stood out. Like, hey, you know, you're attacking this guy and like thinking that he shouldn't be president. And then he was really like struggling to come up with like why he's not a good fit. And just like, man, like it came off like, hey, he kind of shortcutted, you know, the route to get there. And like, you know, just because like he's an entertainer and like I think again, there's a lot of like envy or jealousy. It's like, why is this entertainer able to like go become the president of the United States? Like, I'm more capable than he is.
Yeah. I heard some guy talking and saying that Elon Musk he's really not as capable as people think, because he only has, instead of 5 patents or however many patents, he's only got really just 2 or 3, not 5 or whatever. And the guy's like, well, how many patents do you have?
And patents are bullshit, in my opinion, by and large.
And that was just one example. But come on, man, when you are the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla Motors,
right?
I mean, and
you can only fall into,
you're a smart guy,
right.
You're a very bright person, and he's considered the wealthiest person in the world. Just that alone, having that much wealth, would make a normal person. I mean, people don't realize, I'm not saying this because I'm tremendously wealthy, because I'm not, but I will tell you, the more stuff you own, the more complex your life's going to be. The more headaches you're going to have, the more trouble things you have to do to prepare and take care of stuff if you care about it. But I'm just saying, man, there's 2 sides to every coin.
Yes, I used to talk to people about this quite a bit, that you ask someone, hey, would you like to be Bill Gates? And almost everyone like, oh yeah, that would be great. But would you like to do what Bill Gates did to become Bill Gates, and what he has to continue to do to like support the lifestyle in the way that you're talking about?
Yeah.
No, most people don't want that sort of complexity or that sort of grandiose of a lifestyle. Like, if it actually comes to like, hey, what do I have to do on a day-to-day basis to actually
maintain this?
Right.
Look at like famous, entertainers. Like, look at Clint Eastwood, for example. He's in his 90s now, and he's still working. Mick Jagger on the Rolling Stones, they still perform. And I think the reason is because these people want for nothing. They have all this money and wealth, but it's not about just the money and fame and fortune. I mean, it's about
having the ability to do hard work worth doing.
It's what they do and what they know. And if they quit doing it, if Clint Eastwood were forced to not make any more movies and totally have nothing to do with, film and cinematography and all that, I think he would probably die. It would take a toll.
Well, I've even seen within the last 3 to 6 months or so about Clint Eastwood talking about, the same thing I go through with like my grandfather. I hate to say this, but like, as people get to an age where they really lost purpose, they've kind of like given up on life. And I'm not saying this is like the case with Clint Eastwood, but like, they're in their very, very late years of life. And it's like, a lot of people don't like to spend time with those people because it reminds you of what's to come for you,
mortality.
Right. And, Clint Eastwood has talked about that over the last, year or two, like how little like family wants to spend around him, like, and there's less opportunities, as much as he's still wanting to maintain and keep working and everything. It's just, it does get more difficult as you get older to maintain, not even just the wealth to your point, but just like the work that you want to do, because, hey, what? That's going to be me in, 10 years. And like, it's a constant reminder, like, fuck, you got to really make the most out of every moment. And that's actually kind of jumping to left field really quick. Another stark reminder of that. You remember when I was working at Best Buy in high school, right? A little more than a decade ago. And one of my general managers, my first general manager of the store, always had this saying, be the best. And he, like, a guy that it wasn't just, hey, this is a good thing to say, but he kind of embodied it. Like, he really took pride in the store that he was the general manager of, and like really cared about a lot of the people.
So that was his mantra, be the best?
Be the best was his mantra, yep.
Okay, well, what about be the best that you can be versus be the best? Because be the best, to me, could be conceived as, or perceived as, this is all about competition, and you got to beat the other guys to be the best. And was he a very competitive guy?
Yes,
some people love that mentality.
Yeah. I think
others don't deal with it as well.
I think it was like more like be your best. Like, that's, I think, the implication most people got from it. But yeah, I do think like, yeah, if you can, like outperform, whether it's someone else in your department or like we can outperform this other store within our region, like, be the best, right?
Man, this is just speaking from my life experience. The people who are hell bent on being the best and all, I mean, they're driven to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not gonna have as many friends, for example, but that's what it takes to be a Rockefeller, a Carnegie. You think Donald Trump takes on that mentality? I saw a really interesting documentary I watched over the weekend. I watched a really good documentary on the Russian Revolution, 1917. And one of the biggest things that I took from it is that Vladimir Lenin had an extremely strong personality, and he never questioned his beliefs on communism and that it was the right way to, get rid of the bourgeoisie, get rid of the landowners. Everybody owns everything. It's the proletariat all the way, and the Soviets, the Soviet councils and all. And they said that no matter what happened, he would never. You could never get him to question. He was so firm in his beliefs. It reminds me of like Donald Trump.
Yep.
And how solid and firm he is. We're in interesting times now.
But again, a lot of people don't give Donald Trump here, Donald Trump credit here.
I'm only comparing Trump and Lenin from a personality standpoint.
Well, I'm even saying from the personality standpoint where, a lot of people say Trump's this like very brash, would never admit any wrongdoing. I have heard him in multiple occasions, multiple long form interviews talk about the mistakes that he made in his first administration, first term. And he's also carried that sort of rhetoric over for the tariffs, like ahead of even enacting any tariffs. We're going to try these out. If they don't work, great, we'll take them away, right? But obviously we just can't sit around doing nothing, right? And that's paraphrasing, but a lot of people would never recognize that's something that could come out of Trump's mouth. Like, hey, let's try this. And if it doesn't work, we'll reevaluate. But hey, let's look at what happened during our first revolution, industrial revolution period, just pre-1900 or in the turn of the 20th century, where we had McKinley. Same sort of situation where we were trying to become an industrial power in the world. And to do so, we needed to introduce tariffs to kind of incentivize other countries around the world to drop their tariffs so we could export to those countries, right? And compete in the global marketplace as we were just coming into industrialization. And given, other countries in Europe were still just industrializing at the same time. And then we were starting to leapfrog, after the turn of the century. And then we were able to start bringing down our tariffs, once it became a more globally competitive marketplace. Then, on came the couple world wars, and then outside of World War II, then we're under this new international trade order where now we're building up the global economy at the expense of the American economy, where, for the 50s and 60s, still great, but then over the subsequent decades, just continue to funnel more of our wealth out of America into the global economy. And I was going somewhere with this that I was going to tie it back to. Basically, but that, Trump, doesn't get that sort of credit where, hey,
that he's
trying
humble.
Something that's proven to work for us before, to get us through an industrialization period, right? And that's essentially where we find ourselves right now, again, is do we want to enter a new age of industrialization? I think there's a lot of people and the powers that be within American politics and even just American society that they don't want that. They want to maintain the status quo of having China continue being the manufacturing arm of the world, right? The slave labor of the world. And hey, that's great until we're in a world of robots and drones, and they're all coming over from China. And it's not just the civilian, drones and robots. I mean, as we're starting to see in Ukraine and Russia, or not just starting to see, as